What's the hardest thing about writing? Well, it's getting started. Maybe you're having a hard time coming up with a story idea, or you're stuck on where to take your story next. If you want a way into a story or a way through, I have 9 story starters to help you. This free PDF is full of story seeds and prompts to get you going. To download your 9 story starters, go to nancypanuccio.com/start. That's Nancy with an I, Panuccio with 2 C's, nancypanuccio.com/start. Experiment with different styles. It's important to develop your own voice, yes, but it can also be helpful to experiment with different writing styles and techniques as you work to develop your voice. So try emulating the writing styles of authors you admire and then gradually blend those influences into your own style. This exploration will help you refine your own voice. Writer Unleashed is for you, a writer who has a story you want to bring onto the page and into the hearts and minds of readers. I'm Nancy Panuccio, writer, editor, and writing coach, and each week we'll explore techniques, mindsets, and inspiration for writing stories readers can't put down. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let's begin. What exactly is writer's voice? How do you access and strengthen yours, and how do you express it on the page? In this episode, I'll give you 4 ways to give your voice more presence and purpose in your stories. We'll talk about what we mean by writer's voice and common ways writers struggle with voice. And then we'll get to 4 tips and exercises to help your voice emerge. So let's start by talking about what writer's voice is. Voice is your signatory imprint. Simply put, it's what makes your prose yours and yours alone and completely different from any other author. You can't manufacture it. You can't fake it. It's the culmination and the evolution of how life has shaped you. So your voice is an intrinsic part of who you are. It's already within you. But it's not static. It's constantly evolving, and it's not lost. Your job is to coax it out and give it some room to play on the page and to allow it to evolve and deepen. It takes time to cultivate, but every writer has a distinct voice. Hemingway's prose is spare versus Fitzgerald's prose, which is lush. Voice determines the form you write in: memoir, novels, short stories, flash fiction, and it determines which genre you write in, be it literary or fantasy or historical, romance, thriller, young adult, or a combination of more than one genre. It also determines the themes your stories explore. Haruki Murakami's writing often blends elements of realism and magical realism, and he creates this dreamlike atmosphere. His voice has a calm, introspective tone, and he often explores themes of loneliness, alienation, and the search for meaning in the modern world. He creates these fantastical worlds where bizarre things happen to his characters, but what makes his voice distinct, at least for me, is the matter-of-fact, walk-in-the-park tone in which his characters react to these bizarre things. Now, there's a difference between the voice of your characters and the writer's voice. There's a lot of confusion about character voice versus the voice of the author. Very easy to get these confused. But the voice of a character refers to the unique way in which that character speaks, thinks, and expresses themselves within the story. It encompasses their choice of words, the sentence structure, and their tone, and the overall style with which they express themselves. The character's voice is shaped by their personality, their background, beliefs, their experiences. It helps to distinguish one character from another, and that adds depth and authenticity to their portrayal. Now, we'll talk about character voice in a future episode, but today we are going to focus on your voice, the author's voice. So the voice of the author refers to the distinctive style, tone, and perspective that you bring to the writing. It reflects your individual writing style, your personal beliefs, your values, your worldview. The author's voice is present throughout the entire narrative, and it shapes the overall tone and atmosphere of the story. It influences the choice of language, it influences the narrative structure, the theme, and the way the story is presented to the reader. It's the choice of words, be it spare or lush, abundant or clipped. It's having a finger on the pulse of your particular eccentricities or your sanity or your sadness, exhilaration, whatever it is, and letting that have a hand in your prose. So voice is the author's vision and the articulation of that vision. Now, sometimes that voice is drowned out by too much concern about how readers will receive it. Will they like it? Should I try to write in a more popular style or a more saleable genre? What's going to sell? This usually comes from a worry that you're not good enough or your ideas and style aren't unique or interesting. And then you start to compare yourself to other writers, your favorite published authors, for example, and that can be intimidating and disheartening. And then there's fear of judgment, fear of criticism, and negative feedback. That can stifle a writer's voice. We don't want to be rejected, and that fear can make us second guess ourselves. It stops us from taking risks, and if you're not taking risks, you're not fully showing up. And then sometimes writers feel pressured to conform to certain expectations they believe readers have, or they try to conform to genre conventions. And while it's important to understand the expectations of a particular genre or a particular form, it's equally important to find a balance between meeting those expectations and staying true to your own relationship to your story. A lot of writers I work with are mixing genres anyway. When writers are overly concerned about pleasing others or pleasing this invisible audience, or they're concerned about avoiding criticism, they often lose touch with their voice. And then there's the over-analyzing and over-editing during the writing process itself, and that can hinder the natural flow of your voice. While revision and editing are absolutely essential to honing your voice, excessive scrutiny can strip away the authenticity and the spontaneity of your voice. And this is all due to a lack of confidence in your writing abilities. That can prevent a writer from fully embracing their voice. But confidence isn't something you necessarily start out with. Most writers don't start out with confidence, but they build it through practice, feedback, and continually learning the craft. Writing is a lifetime practice, and your voice will continually evolve. So overcoming these obstacles requires self-awareness, practice, and a willingness to take risks. Often writers are too cautious, and you need to take risks. So developing your writer's voice is a gradual and ongoing process that involves both self-reflection and practice. So here are 4 ways to help you develop your writer's voice. Number 1, read. Read extensively. Read what you're drawn to. Read a wide variety of novels, stories, memoir, essays, and just read across different genres and styles. This exposure to different voices and writing techniques will help you understand what resonates with you and what you appreciate and value in writing. Now, it doesn't have to be fiction or memoir. I want to stress that because many writers I coach read not just their particular genre, but they read what fascinates them: medieval history, women's history, thrillers, romance. I think it's just as important to read outside whatever genre or form you're writing in. For example, I was recently reading a celebrity profile of Jennifer Gardner, written by Danielle Pergament, who's a freelance journalist. Now, this isn't an actress I follow. I've never seen her movies or TV shows, and I don't read Allure where it was published. This appeared on one of my social media feeds and had a great hook that drew me in, but it wasn't just a celebrity profile. The author was able to bring her voice, her perspective as a mother to the piece. She built a story around it. I remember why I kept reading. It started with the writer in the car with Jennifer Gardner, and Jennifer was driving the car. And it was the way the author brought concrete details into the car using her own experience as a mother. It was so specific. Here's the excerpt. I know this car. This is my car, not the BMW part. This is a car that is early for drop-off and queues up responsibly for 3 p.m. pickup, where kids doze against the window with their hair still shower wet, where they draw on the glass on cold mornings, where they change into their jerseys, text their friends, check Snapchat, lose homework. I'll bet you that gum belongs to one kid, the processed white cheddar puffs to another, and the loose change is anyone's guess. So good writing is good writing. So pay attention to what you're drawn to and try to extract what it is the writer is doing that pulls you in. What can you learn from it? Why are you drawn to it? Experiment with different styles. It's important to develop your own voice, yes, but it can also be helpful to experiment with different writing styles and techniques as you work to develop your voice. So try emulating the writing styles of authors you admire and then gradually blend those influences into your own style. This exploration will help you refine your own voice. Now, when I lived in New York City, there was a workshop called the Writer Studio. It's a very particular method developed by the poet Philip Schultz. And the idea is to give students the opportunity to try on different narrative approaches and in the process discover their own material and their own voice. And the way it worked was this. We'd get an excerpt or a short story to study in class. We'd discuss it and we'd break it down. And then our writing assignment for the next week to submit would be to emulate that author's work. For example, Catcher in the Rye. We tried to emulate an unreliable narrator. Using Jamaica Kincaid's story Girl, we had to write something giving instructions on some task, and in that way say something essential about the world and our place in it, and gender roles and expectations, and how to navigate and survive in the world. Now, this method does not work for every writer. In fact, it didn't work for me most of the time. I felt restricted more times than not. There were some authors who, for whatever reason, I didn't feel inspired to emulate. Some resonated more than others, and I wrote a few exercises for which this method definitely did work, but for most of the writers in that workshop, it was astonishing how strong their pieces were. This method unleashed their voices. It gave them more freedom to write authentically. Another way to try this exercise, if you're struggling with voice, is to take a writer you admire and try to get a fix on the qualities that make that author's work distinct, and then rewrite a section of your story emulating that author's voice. The tone, the rhythm, the syntax. For example, if I'm emulating Murakami, I might write something like this. Last February, I gutted my kitchen with the idea that I would renovate. But then my wife left me, taking our son Jonathan with her 2 hours north of here. The kitchen is old and dilapidated, and the appliances, if you can call them such, are outdated and no longer work. I get by well enough with a hot plate and a microwave. Where the wallpaper is torn off in swatches from the wall, I pencil in phone numbers, the fire and police department, the Chinese takeout, and my son's old school. So give this a try. Take an excerpt from a story you're drawn to. The goal is to emulate, not imitate. You'll use your own characters, setting, action, situation, etc. But whether you try to emulate other authors or not, always look for which books and authors you're innately drawn to. What resonates for you? What qualities do you admire in other authors' stories? Is it the style? Is it the way they use language? Is it the way they use metaphor? Is the vocabulary simple or complex? Maybe that writer stays more on the outside of the characters, like Hemingway, or maybe they stay more on the interior of their characters. Just trust your instincts, because it's tapping something within you that you're capable of doing. This is a good indication of what and how you aspire to write. So, number 1, read and ask yourself, what is it that pulls you to a particular piece of writing? Okay, on to number 2, practice. Developing a strong writer's voice takes time and practice. Writers who don't consistently engage in writing or explore different styles and genres may find it more challenging to discover and refine their signature voice. So engage with your writing regularly. Now, for you, regular may mean every Saturday. For another writer, it may mean 3 nights a week while the kids are asleep. Maybe you write during your lunch hour at work or early in the morning. Practice is key to developing your voice. So set aside dedicated time for writing and make it a habit. Now, it does not have to be every day. It does not have to be for hours on end. But by consistently putting your thoughts on paper, you'll become more comfortable with expressing yourself and you'll find your voice. If you're having trouble with consistency, listen to episode 106, How to Develop a Consistent Writing Practice. Episode 106, I'll link in the show notes. But your practice may mean you keep a notebook handy. I always have a small notebook in my bag, so if I'm out and about, I have some place to brainstorm ideas, to capture details and observations, to jot down what people say. Your voice is an expression of your life experience and what strikes you as interesting or fascinating, moving, or frustrating. It's your vision of the world, and it's how you articulate that vision. So let that have a hand in your prose. The only way to get in touch with your voice is to write. So write whenever and however you can. Now, when you're first writing something, as you continue to explore your voice, you want to let go and, to a large extent, lose control. You want to be receptive and just write. But the second part of this is to edit and revise. Writing is a process of refinement. So after you've written a piece, take the time to edit and revise it. Pay attention to the tone, word choice, and sentence structure, the rhythm, and the pace to ensure they align with your voice. Experiment with different phrasing or sentence constructions or more concrete details until you find what captures the truth you're trying to convey. Revision is all about getting closer to the story you envision in your mind. So don't overdo it. Don't second guess yourself. Don't overthink it. You don't want to strip away the essence and spontaneity of your voice. Revision is a tool to crystallize your voice. It's a receptive process. It's all about getting closer to the story you envision to make it more and more aligned with your vision, your voice. So, number 2, practice. Okay, on to number 3. Pay attention to what you pay attention to. Pay attention to what you pay attention to. A big part of voice is noticing what captures your attention. And here's a great exercise I learned from Twyla Tharp in her book, The Creative Habit. Go outside and observe a street scene. Or next time you're in a coffee shop, pick a couple. It might be a husband and wife. It might be a parent and child. But pick 2 people interacting with one another and write down everything they do until you get to about 20 items. So if it's a couple in a coffee shop, maybe the man puts his hand on hers, but she keeps eating her croissant and avoids his gaze. She may search for something in her purse. She may get up and go to the ladies' room. He may pull out his phone and start scrolling through. Maybe they both sit there and scroll through their phones. Just write it all down. Now, looking at this list, or as you observe, you may have applied your imagination to it and come up with a story about the couple. Are they a married couple? Are they on the brink of divorce? Or are they on a date that's just not going too well? You could come up with a story about this couple, but that's not the point of this exercise. Now do it again with another couple, but this time note only those things that happen between them that you find interesting. Maybe something about them appeals to you aesthetically or emotionally. Now, you'll probably make a shorter list because you're applying selection to your powers of observation. You're editing. You're filtering the world through your particular prism. Next, study the 2 lists. What appealed to you or fascinated you in the second, more selective list? Was it the tension between them? Was it the man's bid for affection? Was it the way she shifted away from him or ignored him? What you included and what you left out reveals how you see the world. And if you do this enough times, when you're out and about or even at home, you're going to start to see patterns. The world will not be revealed to you. You will be revealed. This is where a notebook comes in handy. We don't see things as they are. We see them as we are. It's your particular spin on the world. That's your voice. So pay attention to what you pay attention to. A big part of voice is your perspective on the world, about human nature and how we get through life. Okay, on to number 4. Write from the heart. Write about topics or situations or people that genuinely interest you and that you feel passionate about. There's got to be some emotion attached to it. Writing is not totally cerebral. A lot of it is instinct. It's your passionate relationship with what you're writing about. That's what's going to connect with your readers. It's going to resonate because you'll be pulling from a deeper place. And here's a great exercise that drives home this point. Think of 5 moments from stories that you can't forget. These might be moments that broke your heart or surprised you or shocked you. Just list 5 moments from stories that you can't forget. Once you've done that, write another list. You're going to write 5 moments from your life that you can't forget. 5 moments from your life that you can't forget. This could be the death of a parent. It could be a frightening diagnosis. It could be an accident. It could be the birth of your first child. It could be the last time you saw your mother. It doesn't have to be tragic, just impactful. 5 things from your life that you can't forget. Okay, once you have these 2 lists, look for common themes in both lists. These may be things that haunt you or just refuse to let you go. Often when I'm working with writers, I'll ask them to think back to the initial impetus that drove them to write the story in the first place, because sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that. It's your why for telling the story. That's what gives your voice presence and purpose. Writers deal with essential questions or obsessions that fascinate them over the course of their career or their lifetime or their whole body of work. We allow our works in progress to become both tools and objects of our thought and contemplation by including in novels, memoirs, and stories the events or circumstances that demand to be looked at over and over, more and more deeply. Through voice, you make deeper and deeper sense of what you or your character is living through. Voice involves penetrating attention to what it all meant. Okay, let's recap. Voice is an all-encompassing term, but in this episode, we talked about the writer's voice. Voice is the pulse and spin your story gives to the world. It is not confined to auditory qualities. It has to do with the vocabulary and the range of elements that you bring to your story. It's the aesthetic that dictates the syntax. It might be ironic or crazed, clipped, lush, focused, light, intense, but it's your signatory imprint, and it's just as intrinsic to you as any genetic code like eye color. Don't worry if the style of your story isn't saleable or popular. That's premature, and it's also self-defeating. The truth is, you won't be for everybody, and you don't want to be. When you try to write for everyone, you reach no one. You move no one. So don't let the invisible hand of the market shape your work or distort your voice. That never works. Follow your curiosities, the things that obsess you, what you find true and valuable about the world. Trust in the universality of that. Your audience will find you. So to give your voice presence and purpose in your stories, number 1, read. Read different genres and styles. If you're writing a novel, don't just read novels, read memoir, read short stories or flash fiction, read journalism. Try to pinpoint something you admire and then try to emulate it. Don't imitate it, make it your own. Number 2, practice. Write regularly, even if it's in a notebook. Writing is the only way to develop your voice. And part of owning your own voice is thinking like a writer. So think of revision as a receptive process that allows you to move closer to your vision of the story. Number 3, pay attention to what you pay attention to, what you find interesting, curious, or fascinating. That's a key part of your voice. Two people looking at the same thing will notice completely different details and will attach a completely different emotional charge to it. And number 4, write from the heart. This takes courage and risk. Tap into your own emotional connection to your story, your why for telling it in the first place. What is it about this story that refuses to let you go? Developing your voice and getting it on the page is not going to happen overnight, so be patient. Developing your writer's voice takes time and practice. So just let your feelings and your sense of humor or your sorrow, your loss, your exhilaration, whatever it is, and your particular sanity and your particular eccentricities, let all of that have a hand in your prose. That's what it's all about. Otherwise, we'd all be writing the same books. So there you have it. Thanks for hanging out with me today. And if you know any writers who need some support in their writing, please share this episode or the Writer Unleashed podcast in general. And if you love what you're listening to, subscribe on your favorite listening platform and please leave me a review. Reading how this podcast impacts your writing truly lights me up and helps me create topics for the show. Till next time, keep writing, and I'll talk to you soon.